fourth stage of depression. A grieving process. And then we move to the last one being acceptance. Acceptance is mostly confused with the notion of being alright or being okay. But the truth is, we're never okay, and we never fully recover from the loss of a loved one. We never fully recover from it. But we just learn to accept the situation. Like, you come into reality that, okay, this person is not physically with me, they are gone. Not that you feel any better about it, but you just begin to accept that situation, to say, okay, there's nothing I can do. This is God's will. This person is not here. And you just begin to live better with it. Not that you're okay, like fully okay. Because maybe there could be some certain triggers that can trigger you. Like, maybe you remember a certain memory with them, and sometimes that can make you, like, it can weigh you down. But again, you've actually accepted the fact that I will never see this person, and they are gone, and gone for good. So, like, this is all I have to say about the grieving and the grieving process, and how you can heal and move on from, grief. Not really moving on, but how you can, like, accept that, okay, this person is gone, or these people are gone, I'll never see them again. So, like, right now we're going to have our second speaker, who is Madam Davina. She's going to share a story of how she's been coping with the loss of her loved ones, and then she will, just run us through everything. Thank you.
Hi everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. Can you guys get me?
Oh, yes.
Okay. My name is Davina. I'll take you guys back, I guess, to explain my story. So, of course, in life, many people die as you go through the years. For me, a particular death that really impacted my life was the death of my two brothers. So, in all actuality, we were cousins, but it felt like we were the same blood. It felt like we were from the same family. Our parents are very close, and I grew to be very close with them as well. I am studying at the Copperbelt University, but I've grown up all my life in Lusaka. And so when I first went there to Kitwe, it was a culture shock. I don't know how many of you people have been to both Kitwe and Lusaka, but I think you'll be able to attest that the way people operate, the way of life there is very different from the way it is in the capital. So it took me a while to adjust. I was in a new place. This was the first time I was leaving home. And my cousins, my brothers, so there were two of them, they made sure to do their best to make sure I could fit in. So I remember I would be so tired or stressed from school, stressed from assignments, all of that stuff. And it's almost like they knew instinctively, so I didn't even really have to call them and be like, oh, I'm so tired, I want to forget about the day. It literally felt like someone reading my mind. Just whenever I would be down, they would call me and come and pick me up and take me out, just to take my mind off of things, to show me around the city. So I learned about Kitwe and the places and everything through them. My cousins were also musicians, both of them. One was older, he was 24. The other one he had just turned 18, so he had just completed his grade 12. And they were, despite the age difference, they were practically twins. If you looked at them, if you saw them in person, you would think that they were twins. And they were always together. They were so different from each other. The older one was very confident, very sure of himself. He knew what he wanted in life. And the younger one had the same level of confidence, I would say, but he was more reserved. He would listen, and he was so wise. It was mind-blowing, because he would always know what to say and when. And my brothers died last year in May. They were in an accident along the Kitwe Ndola Road, driving at night. And I was the first person that was called. One of their friends who had been around when I was with them had my number, and so he called me to tell me about the accident. At the time, people weren't sure if they were still alive. There was still a lot of confusion, so they were calling me to get the number for my aunt and uncle so that they could start, I guess, trying to dissolve the situation. So I was called probably around this time and it was a Sunday as well. So this time on a Sunday, and then it was only confirmed, I think, the following day. I'm not sure the time. I think sometime in the morning. But for those hours, waiting for a call, waiting to find out what's happening, wanting to know what's going on. I remember as soon as I was called by the friend asking for my aunt's number, my other cousin, their older sister's number. I remember just again to bounce off of what one of the previous speakers said, bargaining. I remember sitting at the dining table in my boarding house and I was just like praying. I was like, God, if they're fine, I will do ABCD. I'll start going to church. I'll start doing all these things. And then the next morning, when I went to their house, I guess for us it wasn't even confirmed. I didn't even know that they were like dead until I went to their house and I saw the funeral set up. So there was the tent outside, there were people crying, and I was still in shock. Some part of me believed like, oh no, this is a mistake. They'll be fine. They'll say that, they were just injured or whatever, but they'll come home. And for hours, I saw people walk in and cry and throw themselves, and people were so, I guess, disturbed because my brothers, they were so full of life. They were like the embodiment of hope, I guess, because they were so hopeful. I would say have a very pessimistic view on life, and they were just like the complete opposite. They could move mountains with the faith that they had in themselves and the things that they did. And it was confusing because I had, as someone who has struggled with anxiety and depression and at some point in time suicidal thoughts, I thought the people that die are the people that want to die, not people that look forward to life. And so for the first, I would say, month or so, I was like literally a walking zombie. I couldn't eat. I couldn't go to class. I would just cry. And these are people that I would see every other day. I think before that accident, I'd seen them a week before. And they had come to my boarding house. They would usually just pop up and come by with, drinks, or because they were musicians, they would come over and play me their new stuff that they had been working on. So that last memory in my head kept ringing through my head. That particular day that they came over, I was busy with something. I can't remember what it was. I think it must have been an assignment or something, but like finishing it up. So I wasn't particularly present when they were there. We were talking and everything, but they were also friends with my friends. So they were mostly interacting with my other friends who were playing video games at the time. And so in my head, it was like, yeah, no, it's fine. I see these guys every other day. I don't really have to be with them so close in this situation because I'm busy. And in my head, when they were leaving that day, it was like, oh, okay, I'll go over next weekend to spend the weekend at home, because I usually did that. And the weekend I was supposed to go over, which happened to be the weekend they passed, I found out I was supposed to have a test sometime that week, so I had postponed it to the following weekend. And I kept thinking, like, yeah, no, I'll see them. The thought of them dying was, I literally could not fathom it. It was, yeah, a shock to the system. I still feel like sometimes I wake up and it's a dream. But at least now I'm a bit more conditioned to the idea that they're not here. But for a long time, especially in Kitwe, because I was not used to the area, everywhere I looked, I would see them. Like, oh, we came here and did this day. Oh, this is where we went for drinks. Oh, this is where we did this. So yeah, and because it was right in the middle of the academic year, my grades, I wouldn't say exactly, for the first couple of months, I would not, go to class. I was behind on notes. I would just stay home and cry, sleep, do whatever it was that would take my mind off of things, but nothing could truly take my mind off of things. I think the day of the burial, actually left just after the burial, and I had to come to Lusaka because the thought of just being in Kitwe, the whole place now was just like soiled in my mind. And somehow I got through the academic year. I guess I had friends and family to rely on whenever I wasn't feeling like myself, whenever I wasn't feeling motivated. But it was quite a blow. I think, I was, in a daze for 6 months. I was not sure about, like, when the days would end and start. Everything just felt like one long mesh of confusion. And then in December, I decided to start grief therapy. I would say that it definitely helped me. I'm not sure about other people and their experiences with therapy, but for me, it definitely helped. It was the first time I was getting any therapy of any kind. I had tried like a 2-week course that a friend had suggested, but that didn't work out. That was like a long time ago, not for grief, but just for depression. But yeah, the one that I did for the grief, I feel like really helped me. During the period that I was actively in therapy, I would do calls with my therapist, and talking about it made me feel better, especially I feel like someone who was outside of the situation, because there'd be many times I would feel guilty about talking to people that knew them, because it would be like I didn't want to make them sad or to burden them, in case, people have different reactions to things. People process things at different speeds. So I felt like I was just being slow, and I was pulling people back whenever I talked about them or about how I was feeling. But yeah, so for coping mechanisms, I would say this one is a very vague one, but having grace with yourself, being patient. Not every day is going to look the same. Today might be like, okay, I've made a step forward, I can do this, and I can do this thing that reminds me of this person and not completely break down. 2 weeks from then, you might actually break down while doing this thing. So for me, a trigger was I would listen to their songs. I actually liked the music that they made. So it wasn't that I was just listening because they're my cousins. So it was actually like a part of my day-to-day life. And I feel like for the first 6 months, listening to it was like subtle torture, but it was like I would feel guilty if I switched off their songs, because it was like, this is the only way I can connect to them. And sometimes I would feel like a connection. I don't know how to describe it, but like a sense of comfort when listening to their songs. Sometimes it would be unbearable because I know I couldn't talk to them, and these are just like recordings that they've left behind. But yeah, so being patient with yourself, giving yourself time, understanding that grief is just love that has nowhere to go. So the more you grieve, it just means the more you love this person, and you wish you could offload this love onto this person you care about, but they're not around to receive that love. So the best thing you can do is give that love to yourself and be kind to yourself. Take time off if you need time off. Be attentive with how you feel, because sometimes it can be, I would say, a bumpy road, not exactly knowing how to navigate through everything or properly express what you're feeling. But if you give yourself time and space, one thing that also really helped me was I like nature. I'm not a nature freak, but I do like to sit in like tranquil environments. I like to sit under the stars. I like to go for walks and stuff like that. So one thing that definitely helped me was doing more of that, sitting in the grass under the sunlight, trying to not exactly take my mind off things, but to take everything in. Because at the end of the day, one thing human beings usually forget is everyone is born to die, so everyone will die. It's something that cannot be avoided. But if you prepare your mind and accept that everyone that is in your life has been given to you on a loan, basically from God, and there will come a day when God will take this person back. And I think something that's important to keep in mind is you shouldn't look at it as, oh, I've lost this person, my life is over, but more of like, I got to spend time with this person and make memories with them, and I'm so grateful for that. I would say also, if you are religious, even if you're not, I feel like there's there's a religion, a faith, a practice that can appeal to everyone. For me personally, during the time of grief, when I was very confused, after school ended and I was home, I started to read the Bible more and pray. And at first, the prayers sounded like, God, take me instead. Why did you take them? What can I do? Let this be a dream. And then over time, it was the prayers changed into more of, please give me strength. Please keep them in peace. I hope they are not in a place of suffering. I hope they didn't suffer too much. But yeah, so when you do pray, I would advise to just let whatever it is that you have in your heart out, because I guess God is the only one who understands you even better than you understand yourself and the things that you're feeling. Another thing that also helped is writing. For me personally, I grew up doing literature in high school, and so I always was into poetry, spoken word. Even if I write poetry, but even if I was to write a piece and I didn't want to share it, just the fact that I've expressed it to myself would be enough. If you are confident enough, or if you just feel the need, like, oh, I want to share, it's very important to reach out to people. Anyone, literally anyone. There are people who are in our lives who, I guess, would do anything to help us. But when you're in a state of grief and vision from the loss, you might think that you're alone and that no one will understand or no one will want to listen. But that is not the case. And I would also say, just to add on to the first thing I said, take care of yourself as you are going through grief. Because I feel like a lot of the times when people die, because of all the confusion, the sadness, the anger, all the things we feel, we let ourselves go. And that's when people start to lose weight because they're not eating, start to have dark circles under their eyes because they're not sleeping or oversleep. And then, our life just gets thrown off balance. And even though it's hard when you're going through it, if you can even just maintain one thing consistently, the way you usually do it, if you can eat every day, force yourself the way you usually do, that actually goes a long way. Doing things you love really helps calm yourself down, and being around people you love as well. I would also say that grief helps people, appreciate the ones that are around them. So if there are times that you ever feel like it's too much or it's overwhelming, and you don't want to think about it, you don't want to deal with it there and then, reach out to someone you love, be around other people that you love, and appreciate your time with them. And know that everything will be okay. Life will never be quite the same, but the good thing, I guess, about the world is that it keeps going. So even when people die, the sun keeps rising, the moon keeps rising. Life itself, the whole world around you continues to go on. So you can use that as a pushing factor to also push yourself to continue to go on, even if it feels like everything has stopped. I hope I was able to help in some way, shape, or form. But I'll hand the floor over to the host. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience. We truly appreciate and hope you are coping well with the loss of your brothers. We really appreciate that you shared this with us. It's not easy to come in the open and to let in other people know how you're feeling and all. So we really, really appreciate. So if there is anybody who has a contribution, a question, or anything, please feel free.
Hello. Yes, good evening. How are you doing? Can you confirm if you can get me?
Yes, we can get you.
Okay. Well, I must say, it was quite an awesome sharing from Javina, as well as from Stella, talking about grief itself. I could tell from the experience that Davina shared that it was something that was so difficult to be able to adapt. And it is something that I've picked is that despite how life is difficult, it's very important to be able to understand that being on broken feet could move on from where you are to the level where you want to be. I think you continue sharing about the story of your cousins that have been kept through in my mind. Praying by God's grace that we'll be able to transform that information that you share. The drive that is going to lead my life into something that is something. Just like I pray that most of us here will do. And thank you so much for coming out and sharing that such an experience. It's quite educating. Just like Stella said. So on the part of the doctor talked about the stages of the, well, she quite expanded them exactly as they are. But the only thing that I want to add on it is that according to classification according to DSM-5 and IC-10 and 11. Grief no longer is disorder, but it's just an adjustment. So if you look at ICD-10 or 11, it's classified under adjustment disorder. So if somebody is having those, the stages of grief, if anything, you'd want to say that that particular person had adjustment disorder, but it says that if they meet the criteria for depression, just like she explained, which is the fourth stage there, depression, yes, that particular person could be diagnosed with depression. So I would also love to add to that, like just like she said, there is what we call normal grief and pathological grief. So a normal grief is a type of grief that all of us have. And by the way, grief is very much normal. Only it becomes abnormal when it goes beyond 6 months, according to DSM-5. And then when it's impairing one's functionality in day-to-day life. So those are the two criteria that are putting grief to be something that is pathological. More than 6 months, and then it's impairing one's day-to-day functionality. It could be at school, it could be at work, and other sectors of life. Otherwise, it's very, very something that's very much normal. And actually, I don't know if it's just joining the meeting late, but I didn't get the part where she talked about the features of normal grief and pathological grief. However, I pray that she might have done that. And I'm sure we will learn, because maybe one or the other we might be able to have such a question. Okay, grief, is it a bad thing, is it a good thing? So it just depends. And those two things are very much key. And like I said, it's not a diagnosis. So, usually there's this stigma that is around the diagnosis, or should I say, mental disorder or mental condition, something like that. But grief is not something that is a disorder, but it's just something that I would say it's a mental health issue that we could have as a person. It's a disorder. It could be adjustment disorder that could happen maybe because not only of grief, because it could be due to something else that has happened in one's life, and so on and so forth. Thank you. And over to Steph.
Thank you so much, Isaac, for adding on. And it's a really good thing that we are all opening up and sharing. And just to also add a little bit more on the stages of grief, sometimes those stages, of course, there's that order that is normally given, where you're in denial and you go down to the point where you finally have acceptance. But in reality, sometimes you can go in and out of the various stages. Sometimes today you're feeling you're in acceptance. Next time, like the way Davina put it, different days will have different feelings. Sometimes you find yourself going back into depression another day. Certain days you are wanting to bargain. So, but bit by bit, as time goes by, the normal process is you should become more accepting, the sense of acceptance that event has finally happened will set in, and you will begin to have peace with it, and you'll be able to cherish, maybe like she put it, the times you had, and look at it in a positive light, and you'll be able to carry on. So if it becomes overwhelming where you can't do anything that you are doing normally, definitely you can always reach out to a therapist. It does help to deal with the grief, and even talking to family as well And yeah, a support system is always good to have around. So otherwise it's possible to deal with grief, and it can be a lifelong thing, something which, even as I've been seeing clients who've been dealing with grief and other friends, it's something that you deal with over a lifetime, but with time you will be able to carry on and soldier on. Thank you. And let's feel free if you have any thoughts, maybe how we overcame grief personally in our lives, and what things we learned along the way. We can feel free to share our thoughts, even as we go towards the end of our meeting.
Sorry, just to add on a point that I had forgotten to mention earlier. Sometimes, I guess, when people think of grief, they just think of it as an emotional reaction, but it can also be physical as well. So, in my case, for example, after everything happened, I had already grown up being very anxious. But I feel like after everything, sorry. Hello? Yeah. So I feel like I was already very anxious. As it was, I used to have anxiety attacks, panic attacks. But then after everything, it got so much worse, to a point where I would be in a constant state of, I guess, trembling. I do architecture, and for architecture you need a steady hand to draw. I remember one time in particular, I had an assignment due. I think it was the first assignment just after the funeral, and it must have been about 2 weeks after the funeral. And I was shaking so bad I couldn't do anything really by myself. I had to have my classmates, friends help me. But it was a physical reaction that I couldn't control for a long time. And then I started looking up, I guess, ways to stop, or rather not exactly stop, but control and manage the panic attacks. So in the heat of the moment, you might feel like the whole world is about to end around you. But something interesting that I learned was fear and excitement in the body are the same reaction. It's just psychologically two different things. Of course, I couldn't force myself to be excited every time I was scared or in this state of shock. But what I would try to do is at least think about it from a different point of view. Think about something that calms me down, something that always brings me peace. So for me, I would think about stuff like, for example, I had a grandmother who died in 2018, and she was a nurse, and she used to give us these massages when we were kids to help us fall asleep. So one thing that I would do is I would think about the times when I was younger and getting ready to go to sleep, and she would massage us and talk to us in a very loving and gentle way. And every time I felt my heart start to get, when I started to feel like it was too much to bear, I would think of those memories. Also physically, a thing I would do is the act of stroking, just rubbing yourself. It can be your arm, your leg, anywhere, just physical contact to take you out of your mind. That also helped a lot. So I hope that helps for anyone that has had actual physical reactions to their grief.
And just to add on how to deal with anxiety too, like there are many times when people do have panic attacks and may not know what to do in that very instance, and it can be very distressing. So one of the relaxation techniques that is taught is to exercise deep breathing techniques and mindfulness. So when you want to exercise deep breathing, mindfulness, basically you need to find yourself in a position where you can just sit calmly or lie down calmly or even sit up. Then you take in maybe 5 deep breaths. The first one, you breathe out. Second, you breathe out. And as you take in deep breath, you need to then breathe out slowly. Yeah, the first breath can be deeper, but when you breathe out, it's almost like you're counting from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's how you're breathing out. So if you do 3 to 5 breaths in that moment, it can help you to just calm your nerves. So that helps. And mindfulness basically is you need to close your eyes and like it was mentioned by Davina, prayer helps. So prayer is also a form of meditation, and it can help in dealing with anxieties. And mindfulness itself is not prayer, but it's being mindful of your environment. You close your eyes and you just start listening to what's in your environment. It could be the birds outside, it could be a creaking door, it could be the wind. You just start noticing what's in your environment, and you take in a deep breath and breathe out. You notice maybe your heart beating. You just are noticing what's outside your body, because internally you could be feeling so stressed and so anxious. And as you do that, your mind will be centered to less to a less stressful state. So deep breathing exercises, mindfulness. I thought it wasn't effective till I tried it myself, and I realized, oh wow, this is actually helping to calm me down. It's almost like yoga. And Davina, perhaps you may have had some experiences, who have had some conversations before on your experiences with yoga. How has it been like? Has it been helpful?
So yes.
And how is it done?
Okay. So to answer your first question, yes, yoga has helped a lot. I would say if you are into any form of physical activity at all, playing basketball, football, any of that, it can help. But particularly for yoga, because it's such a mindful practice, it allows you to remain present. So a lot of the times when you're going through grief, you feel like your mind is racing. You can't form a thought completely before thinking another thought. And these thoughts will overlap and overcrowd in your mind. And so a basic practice in yoga is to remain present, to remain anchored, basically. And so it also uses mindful breathing. In yoga, that's how you center yourself. So it's a lot of controlled breathing, paying attention to everything you're feeling, all the muscles in your body, and how they're feeling in that moment. As you are doing the yoga, how everything is stretching, the differences that you're feeling as you're going through the yoga. So I would say, even if you're not a big fan of working out or exercise, physical activity, yoga can be very helpful, very easy to do as well. There's no right or wrong way to do yoga. But yeah, the mindful practice of yoga is what really has helped me a lot, because of the anxiety, tend to overthink a lot, and I feel like currently I am much better at staying present and in the moment. So much so that even when I'm not doing yoga, I'm able to center myself and not get carried away by my thoughts. So there's no particular routine that I follow. When I first started doing yoga, because I believe I started yoga sometime in high school, I didn't take it too seriously, but when I started doing it as a way to cope with grief, I would do just any random video or circuit of exercises that I would find online. But the good thing about yoga is the more you do it, you are able to mix exercises or other stretches that work for you, because not every position or not every pose works for everyone in yoga. As you do it with time, you get to find out what works for you, and you'll be able to come up with your own routine. And the more you practice it every day, yoga and meditation, the easier it will be to apply them even when you're not in a space where you can particularly just stretch out and do yoga. Because you have that principle instilled in you, you'll be able to practice mindfulness in any situation. So yeah, that is how yoga has helped me personally.
All right. Well, Madam Stella, we hand it over to you. I don't know if she's able to get me. Maybe she's held up. But I'm sure we've managed to learn something from this conversation on dealing with grief. It's something which really is eye-opening, and we thank you so much, our speakers, Stella, Davina, for sharing your experiences, Isaac for contributing, and everyone who's come through. I'm sure each one of us has experienced loss in some way or form, and we've experienced some of these emotions that we get to experience when we've experienced loss. But as we get to share, as we get to sympathize, empathize with each other, it helps us to understand that we're not alone, that this pain of loss is something common to humanity, and it's something that we can overcome, and we can get stronger as days go on from that particular incident, as we stand together, remain united, and be there for each other. So otherwise, we are coming to a close of our program. We started a bit late, but we'll try to be earlier next week. So we'll have another topic as well next week, which will border on our mental health, and it's going to be recorded. Even this session is recorded, so we'll be able to share the recording. Otherwise, thank you all so much for coming through and for taking time. I hope you learned something. I hope you pick out something for yourself, even as you continue this journey of healing, as you deal with grief. Otherwise, we come to a close of our program, and we hope to meet again next week, Sunday. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure. Thank you.